Hi everyone. My name is Indrek. Welcome to our webinar on conversational AI. And the topic today we're talking about is how to train your AI. So happy to have you all here. And as usual, how we run these webinars is I'll go briefly have a brief introduction of our company, and then we will dive straight into the content. What is what you're here for, and then in the end you have a chance to ask questions. You can also ask them during the presentation, and I will answer them in the end. So we should be done in about 20, 25, 30 minutes. Okay, cool. So let's get started on the topic of today, which is called how to train your AI. If you're new to these webinars, then you can check out our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com and search for Alpha Blues AI. All our previous webinars are there as full recordings. You will see the slides there in the videos as well. This one will also, we will put it up there after this presentation. So it has a lot of good content about the building virtual assistants. We've covered things like building them on WhatsApp, how to measure virtual assistants. One of our popular ones was 4 reasons why chatbot projects fail. So, if you're new to this space, or even if you're more advanced, you can get good, deep content on the topic of creating virtual assistants for the enterprise. About us as a company, so we've been operational for a few years, and our sole focus is focusing on chat automation. So what we're doing is we're enabling companies and bringing them to the messaging era. So really, there's a ton of people today that are accessing, that are using, things like Messenger, WhatsApp. They want to communicate with businesses through chat, and so we bring companies to the world of chat for their customers. As of now, the bots we have, they are doing more than 250,000 conversations with customers each month. So we have a wealth of experience in building bots at scale. And the product that we have is end-to-end. So what it does is, we'll provide a customizable chat window. You have the whole conversational interface builder, either through a graphical user interface or through an API, plus all the natural language understanding tools that we have built our own to build and train the bot, something we'll cover today. And then we also have live chat, so intelligent routing to agents, the full live chat tool for agents to use, and all kinds of statistics that go with it. So what you have is an end-to-end product that you can use. And we've been doing some work also to combat the COVID pandemic. We created a Corona bot. So you go to coronabot.co. It's a bot that gives you information about the virus and what to do, and we got covered in CNN in April. So let's jump right in. So what is AI and AI training? And this when we put together with our team this webinar, why we wanted to have this was because we saw that training and building bots is important, and especially when you start out and you need to do certain things and think of them in certain manner, because then you avoid various traps down the road and your bot gets better. So this is why we wanted to talk about specifically about AI training, and also we have been asked to talk about this. So AI training, it's a weird concept. Like, why would you train AI? Shouldn't it know all things on its own? How can you do it? When you talk about it, it can seem somewhat alien and insurmountable for people in the beginning. And so one of the things that I think you have to keep in mind is that when you have a bot, in the beginning it's like this. It knows nothing, right? And you have to teach it. You have to teach it things. You have to teach it to understand what people are saying, what people mean, and then it gets smarter. So, if you think of the AI inside a chatbot, it's very similar to what you would have as a new customer service agent. If they just show up or work on day one, they probably don't know anything or know very, very little, right? So, if you imagine they know nothing, then they need to have a supervisor. Somebody needs to teach them how to answer phones, answer emails, what to answer, when, how, in what priority, all those types of things. So you can think of AI the same way. So that's why training it is important, and important to get right from the get-go. So if you start out with AI, keep this blank whiteboard picture in mind, because that's what it is. It doesn't know much or anything at all. And what's the goal? So why you should train it? Well, the key is that you want to make the AI understand a broad range of customers accurately. And so, the key words here are broad range and accurately, because customers come in all shapes and sizes with different ways of asking things, different problems, different issues. And you need to understand a lot of them, ideally all of them, accurately. So respond to them what the problems exactly are, what they need to have, because at the heart of bots is their intent detection. So same way, if you ask something from Siri, then Siri tries to figure out what do you mean. If you ask something about an invoice from Siri, then what does that mean? Does it mean that you have an invoice from Apple? It's an invoice for an app. You want to send an invoice to someone, what is the context, the meaning behind it? And so that's why you need to understand your customers. And what you want to avoid is bias, because as bot trainers, if you have one or two people training the bot, then ultimately they have their own way of thinking, of answering things, but it might be different from how other people think. And so the whole trick with chatbots is that people are so different. Our brains are wired differently. We think differently. So you need to make sure that the AI understands those differences and is able to provide people with answers. Because if I answer things one way, it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody else thinks and wants to have the answers the same way, or means the same thing when they ask questions, right? So you want to have AI to be unbiased towards questions, ideas, thoughts, whatever that may be. And this is something that's important in the AI training. So let's get more specific, right? So here's a simple bot, and I ask a thing like, I want to open an account, and then I ask it in natural language. And I think in this lecture, in this webinar, we're not going to pay attention to what the language is. Is it English or German or French or something else? Doesn't really matter. We'll just stick to the example in English, but it applies to all languages. So when I ask something, then the bot determines from this natural language, from this free text, that in this case is interested in opening an account, and then gives me the information, right? So how it happens in the back end is that you have the bot with the answer about opening an account. But then what you have is, with this intent, you have phrases attached to it. So you have trained the bot with those phrases. How can I get accounts? I like to become a customer. I want to open an account. And these are just three phrases that we've inserted to the bot, and told the bot that if somebody asks something like this, then you should answer with the answer that's on the left side. So how to open an account. And so what you have is, as a challenge, you don't know what phrases people are going to ask. So that is your challenge as a bot trainer. You don't know. People might ask, how can I get accounts? Okay, then let's say that phrase you have locked down, and there's a perfect 100% match. Okay, easy. But then people can come in and say like, I saw your ad, it looks cool, I want to join. Okay, so what does that mean? Join what? Bot has never been taught this. So you have to, as a bot trainer, what you want to populate this training phrases here is with a sufficient amount, and we'll talk about this later, but you want to have a sufficient amount of phrases that when the customer asks will be similar enough to the phrase that the customer is asking, so that they can bring back this answer, right? And there is no way you will think of all the exact phrases that customers are going to ask. That is virtually impossible. So what you have to do is you have to be clever enough of thinking different ways enough of asking the same thing, like opening an account, but they should be similar enough. They shouldn't be too different from one another. If they are, somebody, if you train like a credit card, you put the phrase credit card here, then, when people come and say, I want a credit card, then you just answer them opening an account, then you get that wrong, because people don't want to open an account. They want to have a credit card. Maybe they already have an account. So you have to be specific enough, but broad enough. And so this is a tricky balance that you have to have. So, ideally what we suggest is that if you have a phrase, if you have an intent, then, you need to have at least 20 different phrases associated with that intent. And you have to monitor the quality of those things, because you want to make sure that the phrases you have for this intent, for example, in this case, opening an account, that these phrases don't overlap with other intents, that they clearly are sort of within the domain of opening an account. So this is something that when you start out, maybe you don't have a really good idea and understanding of what those phrases are. But once you get going, you sort of understand that each intent has sort of its own universe of phrases, and you have to keep borders between those different intents. Because if they are too similar, then they might cause problems down the road and start directing people to the wrong questions. So, things like what we get asked a lot, like what data to use for training and what not to use. So I made a very clear-cut example. So, here's something you should not use. A long text like, good morning, my name is, I have a question, I visited your office, the weather was nice, but I had to wait. However, I got the answer. Could you connect me with the human? I had some extra questions. You have a great company. Keep up the good work. So why is this not a good phrase to include? Well, one is super long. It's and what the trouble is with long things is that it has multiple intents in it. So first, it has good morning. That's a greeting. Then it has a name. Okay, maybe that's important in authentication. Then it has, visited the office. Then talks about weather. Then wanting to learn about mortgages. But then it had to wait. Then, they said it was splendid, but they had to wait. That has a negative, maybe attitude. Then he says, it's a great company. Keep up the good work. Are they, is the user congratulating us? It's very difficult from this text to pick, like, what was the intent of the user? What did they really want? Because, the 9-10 things here that the customer talked about. A better one is, could you connect me with human? Again, I have questions regarding the loan. Okay, so in that case, you could already say that, great, the main intent is connecting the customer with the human agent. So, handing over the conversation. And the extra context around it, that it's regarding the loan. So, ideally, you would, have an intent for this is that hand over to the person that deals with loans, right? This is what you, this is the sort of the meat of the whole thing, of the long phrase. So some of the things that when we train bot trainers, then what we tell them is that you have to really see what is the core thing that the user wants to know, and then you have to take that out and just use that. So instead of a long blob of text, just train the bot with, could you connect me with human? Again, I have some extra questions regarding the loan. And I would say this is a good phrase to use. It's a lot better than the one before. So as a bot trainer, you have to be very specific with the length of the phrases, with the intents in it, and also with the wording, right? So some of the things that the phrases can contain all kinds of things. They can contain names and identification numbers and things. These usually actually are not important at all, because if you authenticate the user, then you're not authenticating the user based on what they're saying their name is. You're authenticating them based on their past password, or they have to log in with their mobile ID or their password card or some secret token or whatever it is. So you're not using the text to authenticate users. So for the bot, it actually confuses it. So the ideal training phrases for the bot are anonymous. They don't have names, numbers, addresses. Most like it doesn't really help them that much, right? So something to keep in mind when you train the bot. And what you have to think about when training is, think of things like solvability and occurrence. So if you are training the bot, then what you want to have is you want to have topics that the bot is able to solve on its own. So what we suggest is when you pick out intents, what to include and how to train for them is like think of solvability in terms of three categories. Category one is that only the human can answer it. Category two is that, let's say, the authenticated bot can answer it, and category three is that the bot without authentication can answer it, right? So you want to have those types of things, intent topics inside the bot. And then think of occurrence, because the more often the topics show up, the more volume there is, and the more bot can solve those, the more value you get from the bot, right? So of course you want to have, ideally you want the most popular topics with the easiest way to solve them. So we have put together this thing like the topic rating matrix, and what you want to have is you want to have topics on the top right in the green. So let's say what is the cheapest mobile plan available for a new user? It's a topic that maybe, let's say, get asked like 1,000 times per month, and then it's very easy to solve because the bot can just say that it's plan number B, right? Use that. But then when you have a thing like how can I change users on my mobile contract, then let's say it occurs quite a lot. Let's say 500 times a month. But then solvability is something that you can give an answer and say, hey, go and do this. But ideally, the bot would say, well, let me authenticate you, and then I will give you I will just change the users on your contract. But then you have things like, like let's say you have technical problems with your mobile signal, and you ask the telecom company, what's the problem? Well, it's really hard for the bot to solve that, because it might be the location where the person is, it might be their phone, their physical hardware, it might be that they have a wrong plan, their data usage is out, whatever that may be. So this is something also that in the beginning, once you start training the bot, then go for the intents that occur the most and have the highest solvability, and just keep that in mind, right? Because it helps you in sort of keeping the focus on what topics you want to have in the bot, and what to avoid. And also, last but not least, one thing we get asked a lot is like how much training is needed. Because you have a lot of myths here, and the myths are such that training the AI is like a full-time work for one person, and all they do is train the AI all day long, or you need to outsource it to like 50 person teams. And I think it's just like a huge myth, because the fact of the matter, what we're seeing is that if you have a bot that has, let's say, about 20,000 conversations per month, then if you train 1,000 phrases each month, or up to 2,000, it's sufficient, right? So when you think of that, it's not that much. And why is that so? Is that of course, training the bot each month is important, because as I said earlier, if you have only one user asking, training the bot and thinking out the phrases, then the bot might become biased, right? Because I'm the only person, training the bot, and all the bot knows is my way of thinking. That's why, it is strongly recommended that you use the input that your users are giving you, the way they're asking questions. You use that data to train the bot, because that way you sort of harness all the knowledge of your customers and the different ways they ask things and the different problems that they have. So it's very valuable data for the bot. But if you think of it, let's say it's 1,000 phrases per month, then this can be done in a few days, or within hours, because let's say you can train 100 phrases per hour, then it's 10 hours. It's like day and a half for one person person to do, right? So it's something that we constantly tell also companies and people interested in this topic, is that it's not so hard to train the bots. It's not such a huge task volume wise, but what is important is that you as a bot trainer, you are thinking of the quality of the phrases you are training the bot with. So instead of just putting 4,000 phrases each month into the bot is actually not that good, versus, let's say, you put 1,000 phrases that are good quality ones. You think where they go, you edit them out of maybe some personal data, you put them into relevant places, you make sure that your intents don't have, let's say, too many phrases, but they're relevant phrases. So it's more about quality than quantity in the case of training bot. And so, what you also want to have is you want to do some, performance analysis. So, what you want to do is see that what users are saying, and also measure how well the bot performs, because this is the way that you get to see how well you have trained the bot, because we're all about measurement. So, with AI, you can measure so many things, and how accurate the bot is just another thing you can measure. So, what we have here, if you're using a vendor or you're working with us, then you get this tool where you can see user messages. So you see, you select a date range, you see user message like hello, or how can I find my account number, or how long does it take for the transfer to reflect in bank account. And then what the bot does is the bot gives intent prediction. So it says, hello is predicted, it's intent called greeting. Account number is predicted with intent called something else. So in those cases, as a bot trainer, when you're validating it, the correct prediction rate just goes up, right? And so this is a way where you can measure the accuracy of the bot. So I mean, we built this tool because it's super relevant and important for bot trainers to see how well their bot is performing. And here you can see it. So whenever I press the green button validate, then with the predicted intent, the prediction rate goes up. When I change the intent and I validate, the prediction rate goes down. So then I can measure how good the bot is predicting. And over time, I think as you get started with bots, the first, I would say, 1 or 2 months, you collect user messages, you train them, but then after a while, it's sort of the bot reaches a good, let's say, proportion of its maturity and becomes accurate enough to have a high prediction rates. So I will end here with the presentation, and I'd be happy to take any questions you might have. But before that, one of the things, just wanted to iterate is that training bots is something, it's like an ongoing work. I would say it's never finished. And the key message is that focus on the quality of the trained phrases and not just the quantity, because that way the bot gets smarter in a better way. If you just pump it full of thousands and thousands of phrases kind of aimlessly, then the quality will start to suffer at one point. Okay, so the questions we have. So we have a question: what can be done if the training is poorly done? Can you reverse the training or delete data? Yeah, good question. So if the training is poorly done, then what we recommend is, depending on the platform you use. So I don't know what providers you're using, but so if you work with us, we have features that are able to analyze whether certain phrases belong in the right intents, or whether there are overlaps between different intents. So you have what is recommended is that you delete some of the trained phrases under intents and maybe add them somewhere else under some other intents, because you want to make it clean. And you can reverse it clearly. So I mean, what you have is each intent has a list of phrases attached to it, and at any time you can add more phrases there, or you can delete phrases from there. So this is a way that you can manage the training if it is poorly done from the get-go. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions. Okay, do you have any manuals or tutorials about AI training? Yeah, it's a good question. We have manuals for those that are using our tools. For everyone else, if you go to alphablues.com/blog, we provide a variety of information through blog posts about AI training. So you can take this was just a very brief overview, but you can take a look at those. You can take a look at those blog posts and find information from there if you have any questions. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I will end it here. Thank you all for taking part in the webinar, and join us again in 2 weeks' time for a new episode. And in the meantime, feel free to check out our videos on YouTube. And if you have any questions, just reach out to us, hello@alphablues.com, and we'll be happy to answer you. Until then, take care. Bye.